Welcome everybody to the Fantasy Golf Insider webcast and podcast. I'm Jeff Bergerson, joined as always by my partner, Zachary Turcotte. We're with FantasyGolfInsider.com, your number one resource for everything fantasy golf, including DFS golf. We have our final edition of the Millionaire Maker this week, Zachary, and our final major, the PGA Championship. If you guys would do us a couple of favors, if you would subscribe to our YouTube channel, just click subscribe and get on our list so you know exactly when our webcasts come out each week that we do them. Also, if you could take a couple of minutes and give us a good review on iTunes or on YouTube, we'd appreciate it very much. A 5-star review would be very helpful for us. We thank you all for being very loyal members to FGI. We always appreciate that, and we'll do everything in our power to give you the best product available and possible. Zachary, we have an outstanding show. We can talk about the WGC Bridgestone last week. Clearly, the PGA Championship is this week. A couple housekeeping notes, however, though. We're going to be adding a new tool to our website coming up, and I mentioned this in my email to our members last week. It's something that we've been talking about for, well, probably a couple years now. It's a new tool, and we're going to be rolling it out in the next couple of weeks. We want you guys to check it out. It's going to be included in our basic package initially. Down the road, it might be in a different package, but check it out, try it. We're going to put it in, it's kind of a beta mode, I guess. Yeah. So we can make changes to it and continue to perfect it, but I think you're going to like it a lot because I like it a lot.
Yeah, very simple, very easy to use, gets into a lot of the recent statistics types of things, and it's organized in a very quick fashion as far as how you view the data, and that's what we like with the things that we've got. We want to make it so it's not too exhaustive to go in there and get the information that you want. So yeah, Aaron did a great job. He's been absolutely incredible addition for us over the last year on the team. Yep. Just in working through everything that pops up on the site.
He developed this, and it's great.
Yeah, it's good, and he put together a whole database. He's really been working all spring. Kind of started in the winter time after we finished the lineup generator, building the database, just kind of collecting all of the different information. And now all the different projects that we had kind of wanted to do, he's able to start knocking out. So we have lots of different things that we'll be developing. Big things coming again for 2018. So it's good. I'm pretty excited about it.
The other thing is we want to make sure that you guys know that we're going to be giving you, or FGI, all FGI members who are loyal to us in the fall. There's golf, luckily, throughout the entire year. There's only a handful of weeks without an event, but we know that football's coming. It's mildly popular here, so we're going to add content for you guys. We're going to add articles and as many tools as we possibly can, because we don't want you to go anywhere in the fall. We want to give you that key information. We've been playing fantasy football since we were kids, and DFS for probably 4 years now, 5 years now. And last year I was lucky enough to hit a big one, and I'm hoping to do that again this year.
Week one. Decent way to start the season. Yeah, it was pretty good. So it should be good. We'll have at least 2-3 columns a week working on putting together some tools. And you know, if you enjoyed the first 20 minutes or so of the betting show with myself and Jeff Feinberg, I got him really riled up talking about the Chargers last night, Phillip Rivers, whether or not he was a Hall of Famer, how he compared with the other quarterbacks in his draft class. He was hot fire by the end of it. He got him quite revved up, and it sounds like he's interested in continuing to do a show during the fall where we talk a little bit of football each week. So that should be a lot of fun. So I think that'll probably end up being included too. So
cool.
Should be good.
Few shout outs this week. Loyal member Alan Klutz had a big week. He said he had 3X. James Capel killed it on FanDuel. He shot me a screenshot. He actually had 2 teams finish in the top 10 on FanDuel in the $100,000 Eagle contest, which out of 29,000 entries is pretty amazing to be able to do. Ken Melkowitz had a monster week, including qualifying for the Fantasy Golf World Championship. We have another FGI member qualify for that. That is outstanding. That's a $10,000 ticket. So congrats, Ken. Very well deserved on that. Congrats to everybody who had success last week. Zachary, some news popped this afternoon about the PGA Championship moving.
How are you feeling about that? My feelings are a little bit mixed.
Okay,
I guess.
give me your take.
Yeah,
Good and bad.
The good of it is that right now, and I get it from the PGA Tour's perspective, because right now their playoffs, the culmination of the FedEx Cup Championship, it takes place right at the beginning of football season. So everybody is drifting away, watching the NFL. So you have this $10 million prize, on the second or third Sunday or so of September, and really a very, very few people are actually tuning in to watch that compared to the NFL. So I understand they don't really want to go head to head with the NFL. So they can, if they can shave off a few weeks and get it done by the first week or so in September, I do think that does make some sense as far as that's concerned. On the other hand, the two moves that'll probably have to happen, they're going to have to move the Players' Championship back to March, which
I hate
historically has been terrible in terms of weather and having to deal with a lot of nonsense in terms of winds and storms and things. I don't like that. And then having the PGA Championship in May will also kind of take away from a lot of the North and Midwest and Eastern courses that they may be able to host at, because it's just a little bit cooler.
It's unpredictable
that time of year. Yeah, you don't know if it's going to be. I mean, because if they want to have it in like next year, it's in St. Louis.
Right.
It's St. Louis at the beginning of May. It could still be a little bit cold that time of year, especially if they wanted to do it, up north somewhere in like Minnesota or something like that, Wisconsin.
Could snow.
Yeah, you really don't know what it's like. So it's going to wipe away some of the opportunities there. It will get the season moving a little bit faster, so that
it's really gonna condense the majors big time
a little bit. I mean, you'll go right from 1 month to the next, which will be exciting. I mean, you just have March, April, May, June, July, and then playoffs after that. So it'll move everything up.
It wasn't clear. So this is going to start in 2019, right?
So not next year.
And part of it, the deal is it has to do with the Olympics too, with the jockeying. Like they jockeyed it last year for the Olympics, so that's part of it. But what is going to happen to that? What's going to happen in September? Are they going to move a couple of events that were in May to September?
Right, because everything now is going to be whoever they bump from that space is going to have to get moved. Right. So everybody is going to have to be moving around as far. I mean, I haven't seen schedule. I don't know when that pops out. Hopefully probably within the next month or so. I would assume, because it's going to start in October.
I wonder if that's going to help some of the fields in the fall. Because guys are used to playing the elite players through September. Are they just not going to play now September, October, November, or December? Or are they going to maybe play in some of these fall events?
It depends on how, I mean, if they stretch the fall season to like 8 events or 9 events, maybe we'll see them once or twice.
That would be a positive.
Yeah, I mean, maybe they could, they already have the one WGC event right in the middle. It's tough to see how they would add very many more events, because it's not like you can't really close the season with the Tour Championship and then the next week after that it's a WGC or something. I mean, there's got to be some downtime right after that. So they're no matter what, guys are going to take 2, 3, 4 weeks off after the Tour Championship.
But I hope they just don't have nothing.
I would think there's probably going to be a little bit more off time that will be in there, because I mean, if you're a springtime event, do you really want to get moved over?
Probably
in the fall?
not. Well, it depends on who's going to commit to playing the tournament.
Yeah, that's true. So we're still a year away from seeing what that looks like. But I'll greet it, I guess, with an open mind for now, and see how our subscription numbers look with the new format ahead. So I feel like it'll just bump up during, it'll hit right at the beginning of football season. So September just may end up being a quieter month. Kind of what my guess would be.
Let's recap the Bridgestone. Hideki Matsuyama looked absolutely unstoppable and just rolled, kind of put it all together. He's actually making putts. And just his outstanding tee to green game, his greens and reg, you're just pounding the pin.
It was a Tiger Woods-like effort.
Yeah, he just buried everybody.
Yeah, where the field is just never close on Sunday. And he just rolled the whole way through. He was never in trouble at any point. I think his longest par putt was like 3.5 feet.
Yeah.
Brilliant efforts. What we've been waiting for all season long from the guy. I don't know.
He's good, but that was just
dramatic. Yeah. And we've kind of thought that he would have that at a major this season. So, it'll be interesting to see. He's going to have one more shot this week. It's a similar type of course in terms of you want to be long and straight, and there's not very many guys who are both bombers and good in terms of accuracy as far as hitting fairways. So if he's on his game, I mean, he had that charge at the beginning of the year where he was just winning, and everybody thought this is where he does it. So I was frustrated because I felt like I had everybody relevant in terms of in like the top 15 or so outside of Hideki, the guy who ended up winning it. I mean, the picks were right on. I owned, a good amount of Thomas Peters. He was a core play.
You had Zach Johnson.
Had Zach Johnson. I had Charlie Hoffman in the secondary group. I kind of just decided with a couple of these guys, I'm not going to let Charlie Hoffman beat me anymore. So I decided that 2 weeks ago. If you can't beat him, join him. And 2 weeks in a row, Charlie has been fantastic. So he was right there. I had Paul Casey in there. He was one of my top core plays of the week. I owned a good amount of Rory. I owned a good amount of Ricky. So I had a lot of the guys that were right there in the mix. But yeah, when you don't have the winner in a no-cut event in a small field,
like a dominating performance like that,
because he had so many more points.
Yeah, he did.
Than anybody else that. And he was like, 14, 15% owned, somewhere in that range.
Yeah.
But in a week where nobody gets cut, that is killer
for sure.
if he's not on your big teams, because that's going to mostly push you way back down. You're not going to beat very many Hideki teams when nobody has a guy who's missing the cut.
Very frustrating, because I think I've owned Hideki just about every other week this year, and for some reason, I don't know what that reason is.
I think it was the tighter pricing.
Yeah.
Because you couldn't buy.
You had to make choices.
Yeah, because I mean, even with the way that I did it, I could still only really afford to be truly in on three guys at the top, and I picked Spieth, Rory, and Ricky.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to argue with any of those guys, and none of them played badly. I mean, they were right there. It looked like Rory was going to make a run to close. Ricky pushed his way back into the top 10. So. Yeah, I mean, it was just a matter of, did you like Ricky better or did you like Hideki better? I mean, they were both right in that same range, and unfortunately, I chose poorly.
Yeah, yeah.
Not much you can do in situations like that. So
it's very difficult to identify the guys up top and say, Jordan Spieth is going to play better than Rory McIlroy. Hideki is going to play better than Dustin Johnson.
In this event, right?
It's just very difficult to do that.
Because I mean, if the beginning of the week, if you're like, well, Rory will be contending on Sunday. Do you want to have Rory? Yeah. I would like to have. I would like to have Rory. Yeah, Ricky's probably going to be in the top 10. Do you want him? Sure. Yeah. I mean, so it's in the no cut events where you have tight pricing, you just don't get to take 30% of everybody,
right?
Because there weren't any deals to be had in that 6,000 range like there are most weeks. So you really had to just pick a few of those guys in each of the ranges between 10 and up, and then 9 and 8, and kind of ride it the rest of the way.
Should we turn the page on WGC to get to our fourth and final major of the year, the PGA Championship? It's at Quail Hollow Club, 7,600 yards. It's a par 71. You probably know that the Wells Fargo Championship is always played at Quail Hollow every year as part of the PGA Tour stops. It wasn't this year in preparation for the PGA Championship, but we can use that, and we have that in our tournament history log as a tool on our site. Those are results from the Wells Fargo, so be sure to look at that. The course is a little bit different than it has been in the past. They've changed a few holes. They've created 3 new holes, including the new 524-yard opener made by merging the first and second holes. Number 4 and 5 also are new, made from the previous par 5 fifth hole. So we have different holes. I would imagine the rough will probably be a little bit more difficult than it is for the regular tour stop, although we've seen the last couple of majors, the rough has not been out of control and not difficult and not crushing to players. No. So I'd imagine it's probably not going to bury a lot. We've heard preliminary reports saying it's not that bad. So a lot of trees, tree-lined fairways. So we're looking for longer hitters, but also we can't have inaccuracy to a point where they're getting involved in the trees. But I would say it's not that difficult to stay in play at Quail Hollow. It never has been in the past, and they've actually eliminated a lot of trees over the years. George Cobb built it in '61. Arnold Palmer and Tom Fazio have made alterations to the course. What's really interesting is I like the fact that everyone's coming off of an event. So we've seen everyone in the past week. There aren't any long layoffs for guys where you have question marks like, oh, we haven't seen this guy in 3 or 4 weeks. How's that going to affect him?
Sure.
Everybody should be firing on all cylinders. So we got course history, we got current form, we got a good solid base for our statistics. Speaking of fantasy golf metrics, thank you for supplying us the stats. And Adam as well does the stats too. Strokes gained tee to green this week, strokes gained putting, birdies or better percentage, scrambling, par 5 scoring, and proximity more than 200 yards will be the baseline numbers that we put into our model, into the FGI model. I always tweak those just to mess around with them to see how it changes things, and you can too, because it's completely interactive. And I think it's very interesting this week because there's several guys who really pop in a lot of different categories when you do change those things, and presents a lot of good value down in that 7K range, which is pretty intriguing, really.
Oh, definitely, yeah. I mean, there's some real guys that this week, like last week, there just wasn't much there to squeeze out of the pricing. And this week, again, we kind of get back to, wow, there's a good 5 or 10 names here that we can definitely exploit for some value. You're going to have to be a little bit choosy because not all of those guys are just going to take off and have incredible performances. But there are definitely guys that normally you probably would see much, much higher in terms of pricing. And even for this event, much higher in terms of pricing, that this week you're getting a really nice discount on.
Anything about the course or the tournament in general that you have thought of that we should share?
I don't know if there's anything in particular. It has been one where, I mean, there's certain courses where, like, if you look at like TPC Sawgrass and you look at course history, it's jumbled. You know, you can't really draw much from year to year as far as what one guy's going to do from one year to the next. This one here, some of the top players, there's a handful of players who are very, very strong. So it tends to be, when I see that type of consistency in course history, that leads me to believe that experience here does translate over more so than some of the other courses that we would see on tour throughout the year. So it's something to think of.
Absolutely. I think there's a tendency for longer ball hitters to, be more successful here. I think you see that from year to year. So I will definitely be putting a premium on longer ball hitters off the tee and long iron play as well as the statistics show. Certainly. The pricing this week on DraftKings and FanDuel isn't as soft as it normally is for majors. It's not super difficult, but you can't really stack two of the top guys together because you're dropping down in that 6K range, actually mid 6K range if you want to stack like Spieth and Rory or something like that. So I don't know that that's going to be a decent option. I think definitely locking in one of these top 5 or 6 guys is going to be the best route of attack because it's hard to imagine them not being in the mix on Sunday.
Just feels like it's trending back towards the big guys again. I mean, last week we talked about, we said any one of these like top 5 or 6 guys we felt like is going to take it. I'm sure Hideki was number 6 in that group, and he was the guy that emerged. I feel like that's kind of going to end up being the case this week. I mean, last year we had Jimmy Walker come out of nowhere and win it, which, that theoretically something like that could happen this year, but I'm just not getting that sense when I do my research so far, particularly if they've toughened it up from the way it usually plays.
Right. Who are you liking, or who are you thinking you're going to be gravitating toward in this upper tier couple guys?
I mean, I guess I'm just going to take a great big bite of chalk to start off with. It's really tough for me to get away from Rory McIlroy. Everything is coming together. He's won here twice before. He's always right around the top 5 or better here. He might not even have to win. If he comes in like 4th, the rest and you find the winner in the other 5. He was on the winning team for the Open Championship, and he didn't, and he was 4th place there. So I think he contends. I think he's definitely a top 5 play this week. We've been talking about the last couple weeks. He found something out at Royal Birkdale, turned it on the last 3 rounds and was right there at the end until he had a really ridiculous bogey on a par 5. So I think that he's going to be highly owned, but I'm just going to choose to diversify in other areas. This course, with the length of this course and the demands that it's going to put on people's tee to green game, there's very few guys up at the top who are going to be able to gain as many strokes off the tee as Rory. So,
and he is dominated here like none other. Right. So it's pretty difficult to argue with.
Yeah, so I mean, you could get crazy up there at the top, and you could jump over to Jordan Spieth, who I think will probably do reasonably well. But then we see weeks like this past week at the WGC where you think, all right, he's on fire, he's charging, he's gone, and then he finishes kind of middle of the pack. But
what's the difference in ownership between Rory and Spieth though this week?
Huge.
You think so? Like Rory, you have him owned at 30% plus?
31% was what I came
30
at.
And Spieth at 20?
Closer probably. With Rory sucking up that much of the ownership, I think Spieth will be just slightly under 20.
Okay.
Maybe like 15 to 18 range. Probably not as low as 15. I would probably say closer to like 18.
Is that a large enough spread to make you flip-flop,
No.
Even if you like Rory, to go to Spieth to be more contrarian?
No, I don't think so. Not right there, because I really believe that Rory's got a better chance
I do too.
winning it than Spieth.
I do too.
So at the top, I'm not making those really bold pivots.
Right.
If I'm going to make those types of pivots, I want it to be when people get really excited about a really marginal player in the middle of the pack and his ownership suddenly is 25, 30%, just something way out of line where there's just no real rhyme or reason to believe that player is that exceptionally good. And they have a much wider range of where I believe that they could finish, so that just pivoting one over and hoping they miss the cut. I mean, I guess Rory could miss the cut here. That's entirely possible. He's been a little erratic this season. I don't know. It feels less likely than when you make that move on a guy who's like 7,300, who suddenly has 20-25% ownership, and you just pivot to the next guy who's who's got maybe 3 or 4% ownership and somewhat similar upside overall. So I'm not gonna pivot off of Rory. Are you gonna have the guts to fade Rory this week?
No, sir.
Good.
No,
okay.
I'm not going to be fading Rory. I like him too much this week, and it's been a chalky year in GPPs. It's been the chalk is hit. You've had to have a lot of chalk this year. Right. It doesn't mean you have all chalk with all 6 of your guys on DraftKings or 8 in FanDuel, but you're gonna have to have some. So I like Rory as my chalk this week. I'll diversify and pivot down further.
You really only need to diversify a lot, probably in one spot.
Sure.
One, maybe 2, but 1 really at the most. I mean, the difference at the Open Championship was 1 player. Mm-hmm. It was Haotong Li, who had the great final round, who was owned by 0.5%.
Right.
And I talked about that in my column. There's going to be 1 dart throw who emerges, and it's going to be up to you to find that one out of a group of maybe like 10 or 15 guys that you feel potentially could do it. So don't get crazy with your teams, and especially PGA Championship. This does tend to be one, at least from what I've seen over the last few years, where the good players do tend to perform as anticipated. They do tend to play pretty well. I mean, 3 years ago at Valhalla, we had Phil was up there, Rory was up there, Ricky was up there. Yep. We had Jason Day and Spieth dueling it out. Last year was a little bit different in terms of Jimmy Walker kind of coming out of nowhere. But for the most part, at least in recent years,
But Jason Day was right there as well last year.
Yeah, I mean, second place. So so really, it doesn't take too much in terms of your pivots.
No, I think when you're doing multiple lineups, you're locking in a lot of those guys in your core. Your Rorys, your whoever else will talk about them, but then take 1 or 2 guys and have those guys be the 5% or lower owned, and mix those in at lower ownership exposure. If you're using our lineup generator, it's the perfect tool to do that. So you're putting your core at 20, 30, 40% on guys that you feel good about, and then mixing in a dozen guys at 5% ownership just to have a piece of them. Right. And it's going to build lineups that are mostly your core, and then just mix in some alternate players that have a chance, like a Lee at the Open Championship.
Right, yeah. And so, do a little bit of studying down at the bottom. Make your list. I mean, that's kind of helped me a little bit at the Open Championship. I just started building a list of like 15 players. Mm-hmm. And so I had my core, and then I just filtered in the rest. Because I'm not going to go out there and build, 150 Millionaire Maker lineups.
No.
Probably going to be 10 to 20 range as far as what I put in, and I'm going to have the same type of core. I've got a group of probably 6 to 10 players that I'll use for 80 to 90% of my roster spots, and then I'll have 10 guys or so that I fill in for the rest down there at the bottom. And that'll be how I build my Millionaire Maker teams, because you do want to take some extra chances. If you're in that 333, you don't have to necessarily find that needle in a haystack. It can benefit you, but you don't have to find that player. But Millionaire Maker, it's been really rare over the years where we've seen just a complete chalk lineup out of over 100,000 entries that has just totally come through. So
I think a big mistake that people make, though, is they overexpose themselves to lower dollar guys, and there's no real reason to. I've put this in my column several times. I'll see on Twitter someone say, oh yeah, a guy like, I'm trying to think, like a Grayson Murray or something like this. Oh, he just crushed 80% of my teams. What? Yeah, why would you have 80% of somebody down there? You don't have to do that to be overweight them. If you someone like that, and that's just an example, but there's a lot of other guys, they're going to be owned at 5%. If you own them at 15% even, you got a huge overweighting on those guys. And that's all you need. You don't need to be 80%, because if you're going to be 80% on somebody, make it be a Rory McIlroy or a Jordan Spieth, who isn't going to destroy you most likely, but you're just taking a shot on guys down below. Don't let them break you like that.
Yeah, you don't need to. I mean, Murray's going to be 1% owned. A guy like Murray and a lot of these other guys, they're going to be 1% owned. So if you have them on like 2 or 3 lineups out of 20, you're way overweight already. You don't have to go too crazy. Right. And their upside's generally pretty capped anyway.
Sure.
So,
but if he does happen to pop, you've still got several lineups that have a shot with your other core guys. So.
Yeah. So don't get too crazy with that. Like I said, I tried to talk people through, because I think a lot of people, there's 2 mindsets when people play DFS. The vast majority of people are gravitating towards the chalk style lineup. Where they're like me, where they just see the plays that look right in terms of course history, in terms of recent form. It lines up. Here are my players.
Yep.
Let's go. So if that's what you do, just make a conscious effort at the start of the week to say, all right, well, I know my chalk over here. What are the guys do I think that have upside? Just let me force myself to make a list over here of 10 guys that I'm going to make myself put into the rest of my life. So make all your other lineups, just build lineups of 4 or 5 guys, and then just slot in those other 8 to 10 players. It's not going to feel good. It's not going to feel natural for a lot of folks, but a lot of people don't have like that Tommy G mentality of, I know the chalk and therefore I can get away from it very easily. Most people are drawn into it. So if you have to find a way to make it a process, find a way to incorporate that into your process. It'll help you out a lot.
So we talked a little bit about the upper price guys. Let's drop down into the 9 and 8K range, an absolutely loaded range here.
Sure.
Tons of guys who I could easily see contending. The guy I probably like the most is Brooks Koepka at 9,200.
Yeah, I think so too. He's played really well of late.
He has, yep.
My favorite part of picking Brooks right now is that with Brooks, what we know is that he goes through these stretches where he stays really hot for a long period of time, and it usually lasts for a couple months. And we saw it 2 years ago when he came into Whistling Straits and was just tearing up the course, and especially in terms of fantasy points. Pretty much that was the end of it right there, because after that the FedEx Cup came and he got cold. But he is a hot and cold player. He's got a lot of momentum going. He's played well. The last 3 tournaments, the U.S. Open winner, obviously there, the Open Championship, contending all the way to the last day. Quietly played very well again at the WGC. Yep. So I love it. And he doesn't seem like he's phased at all at this point by the pressure. So it should be pretty laid back.
Perfect course for him, I think.
Yeah, I think he's going to be the best play in that range. There's a few guys there that I probably will be fading, I guess.
Is Sergio just happy to have a green jacket and a ring?
It feels
like it. Is that basically it? Is he just going to...
I mean, this should be... It's tricky, too, because he hasn't really played this course much in recent years, and he doesn't have amazing results from what he's shown in the last 10 years or so. So it's tough to say where his mind is at. I'm sure he's happy. The season at this point can be considered a success,
I guess,
given the way that he's played. he may be a reasonable contrarian play, but I'm just not feeling it.
I'm
right
not
now.
either.
I don't know. I was more excited. I thought if he had a chance to win another major this year, it probably would have been a couple weeks ago.
Sure.
At Workdale.
Yeah.
It felt like the momentum was pretty good, and I thought if he's feeling it here, this could be a spot again where he makes another push, and he just didn't.
No.
At all.
No.
It was lackluster, and then WGC was pretty lackluster. Again, he's recently married, so he may just be kind of winding down at this point. And so I guess when there's other talented, bigger hitters that are around there for the same price, those tend to be the ones that I gravitate towards a little bit more than Sergio.
Yep.
So.
A couple other guys, Justin Thomas at 8,900, strictly a GPP play. Just tons of upside, but I think his game for this course is wonderful. I mean, he's long off the tee, scores on par fives. I think he is an excellent fit there.
I wish his price were not so high.
Yep.
That I mean, with the 3 recent missed cuts, he missed the cut here last year. He was 7th 2 years ago. I thought his price. I was hoping his price would be more like 80. We've seen it at like 8,200 for a lot of majors of late, so I was hoping lower.
Well, it's much lower for the Bridgestone.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So it isn't that weird that, you know, like last week, and I know they released the prices early, but they put these prices out pretty much, what was it, the day after the Bridgestone?
Similar.
Last week? So last week, Daniel Berger was
more than Thomas.
Slightly more than Thomas.
This week it's like $1,000 difference.
Well below
Yeah.
Thomas. I think it like a $1,300 difference or something ridiculous like that. I don't know where that comes from. So for me, and I don't know that Thomas is even going to be contrarian. He's so popular in the DFS community because he scores.
Yeah.
I mean, it's I don't think he's going to be that low owned.
Well, he won't. I don't think he'll hit 15%.
No, not 15, but he'll be double digits.
Yeah, I'd say 10 to 12, somewhere in there.
So I'm really debating. I'm definitely going to own some Berger, which I think a lot of people are going to for the price because you just get such value out of that. But I'm still going back and forth with Thomas. I do think he'll play well this week, but being right there in the same range as Koepka, if I could just buy more Koepka right there instead, that may be the route.
Right.
That may be the option that I end up going.
I'm going to warn you and all of our members about something, and I haven't been on these two guys in the same week ever in my DFS career, but I'm going to do it, and it's going to be the kiss of death.
Oh, wow. Where are we going here?
Paul Casey.
Oh, wow. I don't
and Charlie Hoffman.
Yeah, I like both of those picks.
I'm just telling you, I'm never on those guys, and this week I am. So be forewarned.
I don't know.
That's all.
That's another one I don't get. I mean, I understand Paul Casey's not quite like a top 10 player.
No,
in the
price
world,
is too cheap. It's a joke.
His finishes this season have been so consistently good, one after another. I mean, even the last couple times off. I mean, it hasn't been amazing, but we finished in the top 10 this past week. He was 11th at the Open Championship.
Yep.
I mean, it felt
good.
Yeah, he barely got any TV time throughout any of that.
Right.
But he's been excellent, and it's 7,800. I mean,
it's a joke.
It's silly that his price, because if you look at the way that Paul Casey has played versus the way that Justin Thomas has played, yes, Thomas had the amazing run to start the year.
Yep.
But he's pretty much had his wins throughout his career at easy courses.
Yep.
And courses that you can score at. Casey's been good everywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, he's just been excellent from one week after another. He's not going to get the win for you, but at 7,800, he doesn't have to get the win.
No.
Casey posts a T9 for your team. You're probably pretty happy with that for the price. So,
could you believe Charlie Hoffman's ownership last week? I couldn't believe how low it was. It's sub 10% in a lot of GPPs. That's nuts.
There's just not a lot of.
And he was so cheap. He was in the 7K range again.
I didn't. I mean, for me, like I said, 2 weeks ago, I made the decision. I converted to the Church of Charlie Hoffman.
Yep.
and I'm not going to look back now. This is usually the time of year where he starts to fade.
Oh,
it hasn't happened. He got all of his missed cuts out of the way pretty early in the year. Now he's always been pretty long off the tee.
Yeah.
His approach play has been really good this year because his putter is. It's not great. It's not going to help him, but his iron play has been very good.
And he usually finds a way to screw things up at some point, usually on the weekend.
And I liked what I heard out of him yesterday, where you watched him at the end on 16, and his caddy's trying to get him to lay up on a long par 5, and Charlie finally just looks at him. He says, I'm sick and tired of these second place finishes.
Oh yeah, they're horrible.
Yeah,
those $1 million second place finishes.
Yeah.
God almighty.
So he told his caddy he was going to go for it, and he did.
He did. And he
hit it over the green.
Yeah,
I mean,
he's good.
Yeah, he didn't get a birdie out of the hole. But,
No.
The fact that he had the balls to go for it at that point when Hideki was charging away, I felt...
No, he's never had success at Quail Hollow, however. This year different?
But he's a different Charlie Hoffman this year. He is a different Charlie Hoffman. I mean, so that's I think where I'm coming from with what I've seen overall. Because I mean, if you look at last week, he had never been great at Firestone either. He had never finished. I don't think he'd ever finished in the top 25 at Firestone. So the game is definitely evolved a little bit. I think the confidence is there, the form definitely there. I'm
the
comfortable.
price
is great.
So good.
So and again, I still don't think he's going to be crazy popular.
I don't
think
either.
He'll be owned, but he's not 20%.
No.
I don't even know if he'll make it to 15,
maybe 15
with all those
tops.
guys. So you don't have to go nuts. I'll probably end up owning 20-25%.
The reason is because Casey's right there, Berger's right there, and Thomas Peters is right there surrounding him, and all of those guys are going to garner ownership there.
Right.
One thing I did mention, I did the Pat Mayo Hour for the PGA Championship, and one thing I mentioned is DraftKings handed out their free tickets based on how many frequent player points you have, the gold, the platinum, the black, whatever. So there's going to be a lot of people in there that play baseball, and they get these free tickets for golf, and why not give golf a try, right?
Sure.
So you're going to have a lot of novice money in play this week. I think we just need to stay to the guys we feel comfortable with, not make too many chances. And like we always say, play cash games in major
Oh,
tournaments.
yeah, definitely.
Because lock in these value guys and just crush your cash games.
Yeah, because there's so many of them down below that are just kind of unbelievable. I mean, I'm just going to jump right down to the guy that I'm going to play in a ton of my lineups this week, 6,800. We got Webb Simpson there playing on his home course, basically. He's been in the top 5 a couple times here. His game last year, he did miss the cut last year.
He did.
But his game last year was erratic.
Right.
It was up and down. It was all over the place. He's actually found something around the midway point or so this season, and probably for like the last 10 to 12 events, lights out consistent. Very, very good.
Well, a putter.
Yeah. Well,
he's putting. This is a guy who's perennially one of the worst putters on tour, like one of the worst.
Yeah.
And he's found something where he's actually been plus strokes gained in, I think, his last 3 out of 4 events.
And if he finds that on a course he's familiar with.
But my whole point is, like, the novice player isn't going to know that Quail Hollow is his home course.
Sure.
They're not going to know that he plays there all the time. He's not going to reach 10% owned.
And bet him outright this week, please. I saw him at 125 yesterday.
Yeah, 125.
He could miss the cut. Yeah, he could blow up, but he's been in the top 5 a couple times. Put $10 down on him. I mean, you may be able to end up hedging out over the weekend on that, but I mean that's a silly number for a guy who's had that's kind of success and is playing pretty well this season.
There's a couple guys like that who I've put outrights on. Webb was one of them. I did on James Hahn as well. I think I got 200 on Hahn or something silly like that.
And he's had a good season, and he was a winner here a year ago.
Yep.
So there are some nice. This is a week where I think you can take some shots on some long shots. I feel like the winner will probably more than likely be one of the studs.
I do, but
your goal is just to get into position on Sunday. I mean, if you're a buy and hold kind of player, they're going to have to win it outright for you. But your goal is just to get into position with one or two of these long shots, get close.
Yeah.
With one of these other guys, you can hedge a lot of that equity out of there.
Yep.
So make some nice bets at the start of the week on a few of the longer numbers. I mean, Rory's at 7-1. If he starts running right away, he may be 3-1. Well, okay, fine. So you end up having to get in on Rory at 3-1 instead of 7. Big deal.
Right.
But if a guy like Webb Simpson gets hot early, he's going to go from 125-1 to 20-1 real fast, maybe even lower. So you're not going to get near the same upside opportunity on some of those longer numbers.
And if it comes down to Rory and Webb Simpson or Rory and whoever else, Tony Finau or something who's at like 100-1 odds, then you hedge over to Rory and make a few bucks.
Yeah, exactly. So that's definitely, that strategy should definitely be in play. If you've been waiting on outrights, I think this is a nice week to start because there were definitely some nice sprinkle plays that Feinberg and I had going this week.
For GPP purposes, there's plenty of guys down here that I like to have some exposure to that are going to be contrarian and basically unowned. Olesen is a guy at 7,000. He killed it for weekend golf. I had quite a bit of him in weekend golf at the Bridgestone.
And nobody saw him on TV one time.
Nope, they didn't. And no one's going to own him this week. And he's a birdie maker. So if there's a lot of scoring, soft conditions, he can play well. Tony Finau's at 7,000. The whole world will probably own Finau this week. But Xander Schauffele is at 7,000. All this guy does is play well in good field events. Yeah.
Right, he's the real deal. He's not scared at all.
No.
And last week was a great warm-up. I think last week is a good course to start looking at in preparation for this week in terms pretty similar as far as length goes in terms of setup. You want those total driving types of players. So if guys were able to handle themselves well out there, should translate well here, and Xander didn't have any issues. I've been saying now for the last couple of weeks, he's definitely the real deal.
Yep.
And I still think he'd probably only be 10%, as far as ownership.
Yeah, that's what I think I put him at.
Somewhere in that range. So he definitely gets a pretty good deal there. There's a handful of other guys.
Yeah, I want your take on a couple of guys.
I mean, why is Zach Johnson still so cheap?
Yeah, well.
I mean, I think it's because they put the pricing out early. He got what I was mentioning over the weekend. He got well at the John Deere. Of course, he's super comfortable at. He got his game kind of back in order. He went overseas to the Open, where he usually plays well. Followed that up with a solid finish, and then again yesterday, another course, Firestone, where he feels comfortable and he plays well. He's got the confidence going. 3 straight, very, very solid performances for Zach. And over the years, this has actually been. He hasn't played here in the last couple of years, but prior to that, pretty good as far as the overall results are concerned. So his price there, what is he, 68, 6,700?
Yeah,
it's stupid.
It's crazy.
It's really stupid. I think he's going to be one of those, when you look at pricing versus odds, he'll be up there near the top. I think Kevin Chappell's starting to break out a little bit,
He was one of those guys I wanted your take on.
He's 7,000 this week. Statistically, the season, he got off to such a rough start at the beginning of the year. I think it skewed his stats a little bit. But what we're looking for this week are the really strong long iron players. And Kevin Chappell is, when he's on his game, can be one of the best as far as long iron play. So if you're looking for guys from over 200 yards, Chappell is your guy. He's started to show that. From starting with his win a couple months back in Texas, up till now.
And then he kind of had the post-win
hiatus. And he does. He goes away.
Yeah.
He's streaky. He'll have 2 or 3 great events where you think, it's happening. It's Chappell time, and everybody gets in, everybody pours on, and then, man, the air just gets let out with a really ugly miscut. But 2 of the last 3 years here at Quail Hollow, he's been in the top 20, so that's solid. He's made the cut here the last few years in a row. He's got lots of experience overall, and the game is definitely trending for him in the right direction. So if he's another guy where the tee to green game can be dynamic and the putter can let him down. So as long as he can just hang around average with his putter and not be killing himself missing short putts, he's definitely a guy who can be in contention. I think he's a really nice pivot off of a guy like Finau if you're looking for a little lower owned play.
Under 10%?
Close. Probably. I think probably 7 to 10 range.
That's perfect. A guy who is a super high ceiling, low owned. I love that play down there for GPP purposes. There's no reason not to own 10, 15%.
Not a cash play.
Not a cash play.
He does have that ability to just completely tank a cut. But yeah, definitely high upside play.
Other guy I want your take on is the kind of the DFS darling, and that is Patrick Cantlay. Any interest this week?
I do have interest. And he's a guy who I also put a little bit of money on as an outright. He's 150 to 1, and he's shown that he can compete. And tougher courses. I mean, we saw him second place at the Valspar. We saw him. He was in contention at TPC Sawgrass before things came undone a little bit. I think he finished like 15th there overall. But he can handle himself on tough courses. He's a kid who can just absolutely stripe the ball. Brilliant tee to green player. He's good in terms of his putting. Hasn't played a lot overall over the last few months, but maybe 2 weeks ago was just kind of a warm up. All right, now I'm ready. I'm back. I am healthy. He made the cut there. So he hasn't had quite as long of a layoff coming into this one. I could see this one being very good for him. Sure. I think this could be a course. This should be a Patrick Cantlay type of course because he is long enough to hang in there. He is going to hit a lot of putts while he's out there. So I think 6,900 is a very good price. I think he probably knocked a few of the fanboys off a couple weeks ago with, I think it was like 48 or something as far as his finish. And there's so many guys in that range this week that you could potentially be owning that I don't think he'll have quite the same shine. Probably still around 10% or so ownership. But again,
I would say tops.
But again, definitely a guy who I think has the skill set to post the top 10 if he gets his game going.
Mm-hmm. Anyone else down in this range that interests you at all that you take a shot on?
Gary Woodland at 6,700 is interesting for me this week. 2 weeks ago.
What to think of Gary Woodland?
Right. 2 weeks ago, he looked brilliant.
Yeah.
You know, up at Glen Abbey, but Glen Abbey is not exactly the most taxing of
I thought
courses.
He was back.
Yeah, but you know, this course this past week was a little tougher. I mean, Bridgestone, definitely a challenging course, but he has had success previously at Quail. I think the last few years he's been top 25 or better. And 6,700. I mean, it's not like he's at like 9,000 or 8,000, even up there. So you don't necessarily need a lot out of him beyond making the cut. In tournaments, he's shown that he has the capabilities of making runs and scoring a lot of points. So I wouldn't put it past him. I feel like it may be asking a lot to get a top 15 out of him, but I think the potential is there to get that type of a finish. So I don't know him, and then maybe Ross Fisher.
He was another guy. Olesen and Fisher, both European guys that most of the common folk don't have any idea who they are.
Yeah, I mean, Ross Fisher, he's a guy who really shows up highly on our odds versus pricing chart this week.
What are his odds to win? Are they 150 or something like that?
Yeah, I think he's probably triple digits. I don't think he's that low. I can't remember off the top of my head, but he's probably in that 100 to 125 range overall. But definitely underpriced at 6,600. And he's shown throughout the year that if he gets moving and if he gets in contention, top 10 potential finishes are there. I think one of the comp courses you had mentioned on Mayo's show was Mexico, and he looked great.
Yeah, he did
down there. So definitely a guy to consider, and he's still probably only going to be like 5% this week, just because he's Ross Fisher and not that many people track the European players who don't play over here every week. Yeah,
I think if you're looking at comp courses, I think it's a small sample size, obviously 1 year, but I would also look at Torrey Pines and also Riviera as well as another comp course. Sure. And last week, clearly, I think it has a lot of similarities to it too. So look at results from those the last several years and see if there's any commonalities.
Courses where you have to be good with the long irons. Definitely.
Yep. All right. Well, that'll do it for our show for the PGA Championship.
Got to give Adam a shout.
Go ahead.
Adam, our writer, Adam Daly, is headed down to the live final this week because one of the sites here figured out how to. Well, two of the sites have put together finals at events. Only DraftKings hasn't figured out that's
impossible.
Possible.
You can't figure it out.
7-minute abs, 6-minute abs. Can't deviate. But Adam's headed down to Charlotte this week. He'll be playing in the live final. And there's only 5 people in this one. So
that's cool.
It's not like you're chasing 100 people or 50 people. I mean, it's 5 guys that are down there. So Adam will be down there representing. So make sure that if you're going down there, look him up, find him, see who he's fading for the weekend. That tends to be a guy you can jump on for a top 10 finish, and should be fun tracking him for Team FGI.
Good luck, Adam. You can find us at Fantasy Golfers on Twitter. Also email us with any questions you have, info@fantasygolfinsider.com. Thanks for joining us. Good luck with the PGA Championship, and we'll talk to you next week.
Good luck.